Georgia takes down Alabama in the SEC championship for the first time ever and really throttled the Crimson Tide 28-7. As always, I'm Chito, and with me is my co-host Keegan, and welcome back to another episode for the champions of Dogs Off the Leash.
Pull out your brunch now, butter your biscuit. It's the Sunday Scary Show, you don't want to miss it. Talking about sports.
Hey, let's go, bro. Huge game, bro. The vibes are still vibing. You got your gear on. Man, it was... So, when we talked on the preview, you know, there was this confidence that I think some Georgia fans had because we talked about how this Georgia team was just better than Alabama. I really thought going in. Alabama fans are wanting to talk about their injuries as if we didn't have injuries as well. The Bobo injury being kind of paramount of the conversation. But the Dogs from start to finish really dominated in all three phases of the game. Offense, even though it went stale a little bit, the defense was absolutely lights out. And then special teams, a classic Kirby special teams play on the big stage. Couldn't ask for more, Keegan. What were your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts, Chito, it's as simple as this. We whooped that ass so good. Woo! Go Dogs are my initial thoughts, bro. That was a long time coming. And the thing is Georgia fans weren't crazy. I know that was kind of the theme of your article and just thinking about this game, going into it. Are we crazy expecting this victory? We've lost to Bama so many times. We lost earlier in the season. But Georgia fans knew in their heart that they were not delusional in thinking that, hey, yeah, we lost, but we didn't die on our sword, right? We didn't lose doing the things that have made this team so successful to this point in the season. And a lot of those things took time to gel. A lot of maturation had to take place. But you saw this team come together, and it wasn't just a big victory. To me, it was the definition of a program win. Let's start off from the top. And credit to Bama, at times they put us in tough positions. They made us work for it. But outside of saying that they didn't just lay a goose egg, we dominated them. And the initial big haymaker punch was really when we blocked that punt. And you did so from a four-year guy who hasn't seen the field that much.
Absolutely.
Cole Spear.
Absolutely.
If that doesn't speak to the type of program we have here, someone that has just loved Georgia throughout, consistently shown up in the brightest moment, Cole Spear is a name that we're talking about. And then we drive it down. We're right next to the goal line. Who catches the touchdown other than Rod Robinson? The man who has fought hamstring issues like hell. I've pulled a hamstring. It fucking sucks. You're 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's a nagging injury, or at least can be. He's had maybe 2 carries like all season, bro. And then he catches the running back leak, the thing we were worried about from Bama. He pulls it off for us, gets pretty much a walk-in touchdown. So you got the Cole Spear block, you got the Rod Robinson touchdown, and I think that kind of just sets the tone for how this was just such a program win. All these pieces came together. Georgia fans knew that we had it in them. And like, if you know ball and you're watching Bama, they're winning games, but they're winning sloppy. They got some bad habits. They totally got exposed in the SEC championship. And I know it's a classic for all football players that grew up, I guess, would consider themselves millennials. But how many times did you find yourself going to a game on a bus or something like that chanting this one? We too deep, we too deep. We too deep, we too deep, we too... So it was a lot of we too deep, and it was just like, name a player you haven't seen in 6 months. Like, he was relevant in this game. That was the essence of this victory, and I'm sure it just brought a big smile to many Georgia fans' faces.
Yeah, and speaking of about how deep this team was, you're seeing contributors that Georgia fans themselves haven't talked about in weeks or in months, right? And this bye week that we've earned now will allow some of those other pieces to continue to help us as we make this playoff run. But I have to give a huge shout out to the backup center and Malachi Tolliver. Your most avid Georgia fan, including myself, was really worried about the loss of Drew Bobo. He is the leader of the offensive line at center. He's helping calls. We saw a really big drop off against Georgia Tech. Malachi Tolliver came in and played his heart out. The offense didn't break any records, but we controlled the line of scrimmage and we ran on Alabama's front, a very good defensive front, even without LT Overton, all day long to the tune of about 140 yards, right? That may not seem like a lot, but considering that Alabama on the other side rushed for -3 yards on the day is absolutely absurd. And can you think of the last time that Alabama, especially, I mean, obviously going back to the Nick Saban years, but the Alabama Crimson Tide rushing for negative yards in the SEC championship game or even a regular season game? Absolutely absurd what this defense has done. And we talked about one of the keys of the game being running the ball and stopping the run. And I think Georgia can check that box as their champions now.
Absolutely, yeah. Shutting them down in the way we did. And Malachi Tolliver is someone I've actually seen a little bit here and there because he's a local grown kid. It really came down to a plug-and-play type of situation where he knew his assignments. The other players probably helped him here and there, but I didn't see much of a drop-off at all, and that is saying a lot, Chito, considering that Tim Keenan is a bad motherfucker. I would not want to mess with him, honestly. Like, if I had to block him, I'm going for the knees. I'm going for the shins, baby.
Yeah, that's not no easy assignment. Don't get it twisted.
Not at all. That's
Don't
a
get it
big
twisted.
man. That's a big man. So Malachi Tolliver had his work cut out for him. At no point in the game were you wondering where Drew Bobo was, right? So while these linemen don't get a lot of shine until after the fact, and you can be like, Malachi Tolliver, good job. Had he been getting blown up the whole game, we would have been thinking about having Drew Bobo. So it's one of those things, you don't get enough credit if you do good, and it's one of those things, if you don't do well, you get all the blame and all the attention. So he was not a stain on our offensive line at all, and things moved pretty seamless. We did an excellent job of mixing it up. You talked about getting Zachariah Branch involved. That was a huge part of this offense. And even I had family members getting pissed off. How many more screens you going to throw, Bobo? Right? At some point, you can overdo it, but keeping the defense honest and stretching the field like we like to do, we got too many weapons not to have it be a factor in this game. And Dylan Bell straight up was an X factor at certain points when we needed a spark. He was excellent. Nate Frazier did a good job. Everybody played at a very high level. And kudos to the pass rush and Glenn Schumann to just continually keep Ty Simpson on his toes. And the first game, we did an excellent job containing 3 elite wide receivers. I don't know if there's a trio as good in college football as the 3 they got at Alabama. There's maybe a pair. I think we got 4 deep that might be better than their 4. But as far as your top 3 wide receivers, Alabama has an excellent group. We contained them the first game, we contained them the second game, and the difference between the first game and the second game, something I touched on, we're making them play in front of the defense, but we gave up so many unnecessary yards to the running back with Jam Miller the first game. Well, Jam Miller wasn't a factor. Jam Miller wasn't in this game, and then we did an excellent job containing the running back pass this go round. So really, outside of that, if you contain everybody at the passing levels, well, you have to run the ball, and we know how that worked out considering they have -3 yards.
Yeah, a big reason that you can look at stat-wise for Georgia's success, you can look straight at the third down efficiency. In the first game, we've talked about it now several times, Alabama converted 13 of 19 third downs. On Saturday, Alabama only converted 3 of their 14 attempts, right? And we talked about how the secondary has been playing really well. You still saw Ellis Robinson doing his thing, Dalen Everett having an interception early on in the game. DeMelo Jones made some, I won't say rookie, but he made some young defensive back mistakes, but he still was playing really aggressive. And if you're going to make those mistakes, that's the type of mistakes that you want to see a DB make. And then on top of that, I felt like Gabe Harris, Chris Cole, and Quintavious Johnson, the same way we talked in the preview, they've been playing really well, and we needed them to step up. Ty Simpson was running for his life all night long. Yes, they were kind of in hurry-up mode, and we're trying to catch up being down 21 pretty early in the game, so they're in shotgun, but he was never comfortable. He made a lot of plays, Ty Simpson, but, dude, it was just him and him by himself. I haven't seen an Alabama offensive line get bullied like that in a long time, so I really wanted to credit really everybody, the defensive front and the edge players providing pressure, the secondary for just being locked in, and Glenn Schumann and Kirby and those guys for really coming up with a plan against Alabama. It really was a defensive masterpiece, and if this defense can play 80-85% of what they just did, Georgia is going to be a problem moving forward. So the preview is spot on. So, I just want to get in here and, shine the trophies just a little bit because this dog team really showed out. Even the most pro Georgia podcast, newsworthy sites, whatever, nobody saw this coming. This was a beatdown of Alabama. And don't let them tell you this was just because they had players out, because they won't say that they're too banged up to get into the playoff. I promise you that. So, you take the win, we move on, but just a great game from the University of Georgia, man. So impressed.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some resilient, tough Bama fans, so I won't just make blanket statements and throw the whole entire fan base under the bus. But I will just say, I heard from several Bama fans that they stopped watching at halftime. The general consensus is that they believe in Austin Mack, who came from Washington with Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, and they believe in Keelan Russell. So even though Georgia fans probably were in their PTSD thinking about backup quarterbacks from the last go-rounds against Bama, they had some guys that at least the fan base was hoping would actually get some shine, considering Ty Simpson started playing in a shell. And I think he's a cerebral, great quarterback, but the mental aspect of this game just gets overlooked. Even Gunner has struggled with it at times. Carson struggled with it at times. And Ty Simpson, when he gets hit in the mouth, he just hasn't developed that resilience quite yet. And you could tell in his face. I know it's a lot to make these assumptions that when the camera shows a face that you can read their mind, but I saw a face of a man that looked defeated early in this game. It is what it is, and then the results showed on the field. There were several times where I thought maybe he could have redlined it or strained harder, and he just didn't. So Georgia is a team, for better or worse, we're used to playing from behind a lot of times. Bama is not necessarily used to that, and it speaks a lot to the resolve and leadership when you can handle those moments and fight back under pressure. Everyone's got a plan till you get hit or whatever. Georgia is used to getting hit. We were expecting it. We fought back. Bama did not. But Chito, I got to ask you this. Off the top, play along with me here. Who are the 4 top contributors, in your opinion? No statistics needed. The 4 top contributors to this Georgia team this season right now, as of today. Who are your top 4?
Top 4 for me is going to be Gunner Stockton and Zachariah Branch on offense, the 2 players that I wanted to be X factors in this game. They showed up and they did that, and we're going to need that going forward. On defense, depending on who we play, I'm always going to go CJ Allen. Mm-hmm. And then...
And who's your 4th?
My
2
4th...
for 2, let's just call it that. Make it simple. This is a setup, just for the record.
I'm gonna go with Dalen Everett. I love KJ Bolden as like the middle linebacker back there in the DB room, but I'm gonna go with Dalen Everett because he's had some big timely turnovers, and we know one side of the field can get locked down regardless of matchup.
Yeah, Dalen Everett and the other Texas boy, Dylan Bell, both just seem to come up the clutchest, right? They're not necessarily always the leaders on the team, but in big games,
they're
both
dependable.
Of those guys,
they're dependable, right? For lack of a better term.
They show up. Well, okay. So you almost answered it perfectly for my setup. If you'd have said KJ Bolden, it'd have been perfect, but let me just go down the line. Something that really excites me. Gunner Stockton, Jr. Zachariah Branch, Jr. CJ Allen, Jr. Now, Dalen's a senior, and shout out to him. There was a moment in the game where I'm like, dude, Dalen Everett's so damn good. It's crazy. KJ Bolden, sophomore. So the leaders of this team, the top producers, the people that most Georgia fans would just name off the top of their head, are all players with another year potentially to come back to. So I want to see us finish strong, make a great playoff run. We got to talk about the seeding, but this team is young. This was almost supposed to be like a rebuild year for Georgia on paper. Granted, transfer portal kind of takes the rebuild year out of the picture if you really know what you're doing. But this is a Georgia team that's really supposed to regress a little bit. We are young. We're getting better. I keep saying college football should be scared and worried. It seems tried at this point, but they should be, because this is a time where we already had our back-to-back window with the national championships. It might be more challenging.
Way more. And that comment that Kirby made a long time ago still rings true, even though college football has been changing before our eyes, right? The Georgia program is built to last. We're not going to be a one-hit wonder. You're seeing kids commit to Vanderbilt because they had one good season. Let's see if they can keep that going, right? Miami's kind of resurrected from the dead with this new thing. Indiana, granted, they beat Ohio State. We'll talk about that. So they look like they're actually building. But Georgia's one of those programs that is built to last. It's literally happening before our eyes. Tennessee had an opportunity to take us down. Missed that. Ole Miss had an opportunity. They missed that. Texas, they can't find a way. So Georgia is just steady, chugging along, and just making it known that we are here to stay. And if you look at this roster, you better understand what's going on in Athens. Let me just leave it right there.
Don't make me get my belt out again.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's like that. It's like that for real. It's like that for real.
Earlier today, the selection committee announced the playoff bracket. Georgia is seeded to go to the Sugar Bowl at 3, which is great for Georgia. I kind of wish we weren't going to New Orleans. Granted, the bad, terrible, tragic, just outside of football, just awful way things went last go in New Orleans. Granted, we don't expect that to happen again, but like I kind of want somewhere different just based on that. Chito, what were your initial thoughts on how Georgia got seeded and then the rest of these teams?
Yeah, so the conversation going on was obviously about which teams were going to get left off. It's the same conversation we had 4. And for the Dawg fans that don't remember, when there was, I think it was still 4 at the time, when Georgia got left out after we lost to Alabama by 3 points in the SEC championship game. So you've got Texas, who thinks they have a good case. You have Vanderbilt, who thinks they have a good case. Alabama, even though they just kind of got embarrassed on national TV, Notre Dame, and all teams of that ilk. So even though Ohio State lost, they dropped down to 2 instead of behind Georgia. But to be honest, man, I'm kind of happy where Georgia ended up, which is at number 3. We get our bye, and our first round will be between Tulane, a team that we outmatch and we'll outcoach them, and then Ole Miss, a program that you've already beat with a good offense, but no longer has Lane Kiffin. So to me, I'm glad Notre Dame got left out. They need to hop in a conference. But overall, except for the fact that we change the criteria every year about who gets in and who doesn't, Georgia's good, so we don't care. I like where Georgia is, and I think this is a real opportunity to make a deep run, even though we have Ohio State lurking right beside us in the near future from what it looks like.
Yeah, to me, I feel like Ohio State potentially should have gotten dropped a little bit further. I don't like how they just kept them no matter what. It just seemed like no matter what, those top 2 teams were going to go. And then I heard one person say it, it's like how convenient that the Big Ten gets split up into either side of the bracket.
But isn't that
just on Ohio State
though?
quick?
If Ohio State drops one spot in a close loss to one of the best teams, Alabama didn't move at all after getting blown out, right? So, and I said this. I said Alabama's probably going to get in because the SEC and their TV deals and the network money, y'all can laugh, you can call it a conspiracy theory. They didn't move and Ohio State moved. Come on now.
Right. Yeah, and that's basically what it is. It's like, how can we ride a fine line of getting as many viewers and as much money as possible and still kind of argue that it's fair, right? And this year, like you said, there were like 5 or 6 teams kind of on the bubble that really any one of them you could have made a solid enough argument for that they belong in. Compared to last year, this was a lot more contentious. There were way more teams wanting to get in. What I don't want to go back to is the BCS days of letting a computer decide. What is the point of having all these great minds expanding the playoff if we're going to just go with these obscure metrics? Head-to-head has to matter, right? I understand Notre Dame wishes they were in. You should have beat Miami then.
Exactly.
Okay? It's as simple as that. Miami didn't even get in the ACC championship, but one of the teams that they had to be picked over was a team they had, luckily enough for them, played and beaten. So at the end of the day, I think that is what has to rule, what happens on the field. And I actually think we should borrow the NBA model and how they do the play-in. With the bottom 2 to 4 teams, why not have play-in spots? Because then you can't have any argument. So we cannot make a system catered to the lowest common denominator. We can't do that. But I do think if we potentially do like the play-in games for the teams kind of on the bubble, when conference championships are going on, let those teams play it out. We had Vanderbilt try to potentially schedule a 13th game in Hawaii, but the logistics didn't work out. But basically they're saying they would have if they could have booked a flight and whatnot. Like, that's ridiculous. Those kind of games should be scheduled, and I think that might be a pretty sensible answer to like how we can deal with this. Just let those teams play it out like the NBA does if they're on the cusp. And they do that in the NFL too with the wild card. Like,
yeah,
playoffs have been going on for a while, guys. So like we can figure this shit out, and why not just borrow the good ideas?
And John Gruden, if you guys have seen his take on it, I thought his take was pretty pretty reasonable. You know what I'm saying? Like, the best teams are over here putting their bodies on the line in conference championships, while these other pretty good teams are not having to do anything. And then we're arguing about who gets in. Let's play football to decide who's going to get in. You know what I mean? So there's got to be a better way, but I digress. I'm happy with number 3, and I think our path looks pretty good. Keegan, is there any team that you look initially at the bracket and you're like, that team has a pretty clear path to a real opportunity for a title? Does anything jump out at you at all?
Yeah, I got to think Oregon, because they're playing James Madison. And no disrespect to James Madison, I'm sure that there will be years, especially now with all the parity or whatever, that there's going to be a group of 5 teams that make a push, make a deep playoff run. I don't think that's crazy or ludicrous.
Yeah, Oregon's favored by 20.
I mean, there you go. And then they play Texas Tech, who really hasn't been tested. You know, I think Texas Tech has a lot of dangerous weapons. They spend a ton of money, so they have talented players. It's not that they don't, and this is Texas football. So the Raiders were like a longtime dynasty favorite back in the Mike Leach days for me on NCAA, because their
Patrick
jerseys
Mahomes,
were hot. So.
But remember, people forget, they got beat by BYU, who was one of the first or second teams out of the 12.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? So they can be beat, you know what I mean? So, I think you're right about the Oregon pathway. I think that's probably the best. Ohio State's got a pretty tough road, especially if Texas A&M, who I think is going to beat Miami, goes through them. And then hopefully it's Georgia. And then, it's going to be some interesting matchups, no doubt.
And off the top, dude, I watched the Ohio State-Indiana game. Indiana is for real. They played Ohio State like Michigan did back in the day, just physical, ball hawks every which way, great concepts on offense. And Mendoza is the real deal Holyfield. Now, don't get me wrong. At one point in time, I was like Gunner for Heisman. Gunner is a great college quarterback, and who knows, maybe when it's all said and done,
next year, buddy. Next year,
we'll be saying it. But Mendoza, he could hit a tick off your ear from 50 yards. Dude is accurate as hell. He was throwing deep passes that just normally don't work out for great quarterbacks. So shout out to him. And I think an interesting wrinkle in all of this is the fact that Miami made the playoffs. What if in some kind of crazy world we get a Miami, Carson Beck, Gunner Stockton, Georgia battle? That would be the craziest thing. I guess they got to get through Ohio State and
that
Texas
would take
A&M
a lot.
to make
Hey,
that happen.
we'll see. That's a tough path, but the storylines are going to write themselves if they do. But this is going to be a good playoff, man. This one, the committee, if anything they got right, they're going to get some highly viewed matchups. That's for sure. And I see only one repeat so far with Alabama and Oklahoma, which I don't know if Alabama is healthy enough to take down Oklahoma, especially in Norman. That's going to be tough.
Right. Yeah, in Norman, already struggled, and a lot of people were pissed. Like, just not Georgia fans. A lot of people are pissed that Bama got in the playoff. My thing is even though the eye test is not there right now, even though they've been taking a dive, even though they just got whooped by Georgia, they had a stretch of the season probably harder than anyone else. And even if it was like second or third hardest, no one did better in the hard stretch of the season like Alabama did. These games have to matter. So
they do have to matter. And I think the complaint is no one else would get that benefit of the doubt if it wasn't the name on the front of the jersey, right? Just Alabama.
Yeah.
Because, again, going back to Ohio State, if they dropped a spot for losing, granted it was a head-to-head with the number 1, how does Alabama not move, right? And they're not healthy. Going back to Florida State when they got kicked out because their starting quarterback wasn't there, and they were not going to be as good of a team. Alabama's just beat up, so it's bad for optics. But again, money's going to talk. I keep trying to say it, but here we are.
Well, I think both arguments are there. Like, Alabama this season has been the most watched team in college football. And part of it is because of all those really tough games. I'm sure there's a lot of people who want Bama to lose, but they're the number 1 watched team in college football. These metrics do matter. I'm almost surprised on that merit alone that Notre Dame did not get in, but Notre Dame doesn't have quite as sexy of a team this year, and they lost to Miami. So, yeah, I like how it's shaking out, and it'll be interesting to see when we go to 6 teams, and then eventually I do think that play-in scenario is probably how we'll solve a lot of this back and forth. I deserve it. No, it's just fucking play like week 13. Y'all need to put it on the field. That's what I think.
Yeah, but for now, Georgia's going to have a bye. Kirby and them are maniacal in that locker room. They are going to be prepped. We're going to have a chance to get healthy. There's rumors that we might get Kyron back. Noah Thomas should be a lot better to go. Some other players that have really benefited us this year, are going to have an opportunity to come back and help us for this deep playoff run, and we'll get to see how this first round goes while we wait, and I think that'll start not this week, but next weekend. So yeah, a little break in the action as we attempt to chase this national title, but for 2025, your Dogs are SEC champions. Back to back.
Sir. Woo. Hey, it feels good to be champion, baby. And back to back, that is no feat. So shout out to Kirby. I can't remember Georgia even doing this in the modern era, not even with Mark Richt.
And
it's
to
hard to
pop
do.
one over Bama, you can't write it up no better than that, bro. You can't write it up no better than that.
I think that's why that national championship in 21 was just so special. It's like not only have we not won one in about 40 years, you got to beat the man to be the man, and we
That's
beat
it.
the man, and there's no question again. So Georgia fans, enjoy it. Get ready for a New Year's Eve playoff game against probably Ole Miss. Let's just call a spade, but Tulane, hey, they're doing some things, and what a weird dynamic having the one coach being new, the other coach basically on the way out at Tulane. So
Yeah.
this is messiness. I expect college football to get a little bit more cleaned up year to year, and maybe probably be 3 or 4 years from now before everyone's like more or less satisfied. But some people are always gonna bitch and moan about their team not making it, but do it on the field, damn it.
Yeah, and since we have a break in the action, the podcast schedule may be a little bit different. Make sure you guys tap in with us. We will have you up to date on everything Georgia. Whether you get your podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, make sure you tap in with us. Keegan, I always appreciate you. Dog Nation, always a blast. And as always, guys, you know what it is.
Off the leash.
Off the leash.
You don't want to miss it. Talking about sports, talking about ball, talking about the weekend, well, how about the Dogs? Pull out your brunch now, butter your biscuit. It's the Sunday Scary Show. You don't want to miss it.